Welcome to the Fit Life for Busy Parents podcast. My name is Coach Cam, and my mission here is simple. I want to empower you to go out there and regain energy, identity, and confidence, regardless of how busy your schedule is, through a proven series of strategies. So, with that being said, we are talking about parenting today. And one of the main things that I want to be able to talk about that I see all the time when I talk to busy parents out there, right, particularly busy moms, is the idea that taking away from our children is what we need to do to be able to empower ourselves. This is something that I hear all the time that if I am prioritizing resources, whether that's time, whether that's money, whether that's groceries, whether that's the ability to go out and go to certain places, right? Having nutritional facts at the restaurants that you can go to, right, etc. That is taking away something from my children, and that is not something that I am willing to be able to do to prioritize my own goals, desires, and satisfaction. And this is something that I have a very, very strong opinion about in terms of pushing back against that. And I'll explain in a few moments. But this is super pivotal to the idea of what your child, boy or girl, will go ahead and believe about themselves and their goals and their desires going into the very, very near future. Okay. The reality is our kids are growing up at a younger and younger age. It seems like my 3-year-old, right, is already ready to be in her teens. It's absolutely insane. Kids that we are bringing up in this day and age are learning so much about their environment so quickly, right? Through YouTube and different apps that they have, the phones that they have, the tablets that they have, right? And one of the main things that kids are going to take away from us, right, is the way that we handle ourselves, right? The behaviors that we go ahead and either engage in or don't engage in, right? Children are going to notice both. So, of course, the ones that we engage in as parents, usually we already know about, right? We don't want to be, screaming and cursing and freaking out all the time, right? Because then in turn, that's how kids think that they handle stress, right? They want to be able to go ahead and also have outbursts and things like that, right? So we got to control ourselves to be the right role model. If we want our kids to be religious, right, then we go to church, we take them to church. That way they see us engaging in that behavior, they go ahead and follow suit, right? If it's that we want to make sure that our kids are hard workers, right, and that they don't give up on things, right, we're going to make sure that we're hard workers. We're not going to give up on things. And then in turn, we're also going to hold them accountable when it comes to something that they maybe want to give up on early, right? So we understand all those things. But also, there's a level of what our children learn from us from what we don't do, right? And this is especially for busy moms out there, where I push back into the idea that taking away, right, something from your children is a bad thing in terms of doing something for yourself once and for all, right? And the reason why I say that that's a bad thing is because we, right, as parents would never want our children to do that to themselves, right? When we think about our sons and our daughters, right? Maybe they're 2 years old, maybe they're 10 years old, maybe they're already 17, 18 years old, right? But when we think about them and what we want them to be able to achieve in their life, to be able to go out there and experience in their life, right? Be able to go out there and at least strive for, right? If they don't necessarily attain it, we would never want our kids to hold themselves back and say, oh, I can't because this person over here, right? Whether it's a child, whether it's a friend, whether it's a girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, doesn't matter. It would take away from them, right? We would empower our children and say, no, absolutely. You have to be able to still do things for yourself and make sure you're a top priority. But if we don't embody that ourselves as parents, how is that going to come across to our children? And how are they going to be able to make sure that they do that for themselves? So, just the same way that we role model, right, the behaviors that we want our children to go ahead and be able to produce in the future, right, for themselves, we also need to make sure that we make that anything that we want to do, right, that we would want them to do as well, that we go ahead and role model that, right? So in this example, right, where I'm talking to individuals that are like, well, I could never actually go to the gym and spend, 3 days a week at the gym, right? That's taking away too much time from my children. My children need me. They're going to need this, that, and the other. Even if you have arrangements, right? There's still parents that will push back from that and say, no, I should just stay home with my kids, right? Because they feel guilty. And I think that comes from a good space, but it's also not serving to yourself and it's not serving to your children. It is okay and should be normalized that your children have a little bit of time away from you, right? That you are able to still be your own person, right? For me, I am Coach Cam, right? Running title training and entrepreneur. I'm also dad, right? I'm dad to my children and I'm there. I'm also a husband, right? But I also need to have that identity as just Camden, right? Just who I am inherently as a person, being able to listen to music or go out and walk around, be able to just have all those labels and those titles stripped from me so that I can truly remain who I am deep down inside, right? And that could be done in a number of ways, but in one of the usually the best ways to be able to do that is to be able to prioritize your health and be able to have that alone time to de-stress, to be able to let out those endorphins that make you feel better, right? To be able to prioritize your health and be able to be here long term for your children. And that's kind of again where I push back into the idea that you're taking away from your children because almost everybody, right, would want their parents to live longer, right? When you're a child, maybe you don't think about that. But once you get to 20, 25, 30, you're getting into your 40s, as your parents get closer and closer to the age that, you know, unfortunately, we have to start to understand their own mortality, we have to or what we normally do is we want them to live longer, right? We want that time with them to be increased. We want to learn more about them. We want to be able to have them be there for more experiences with us, etc., right? Our children are going to do the same thing. So if you don't take care of your health, where it's a lot easier to be able to do so, right? It takes a lot less time, takes a lot less resources. It's something that you can do on the fly, right? It's something that you can do more leisurely instead of waiting and getting into maybe your 60s and maybe you're having congestive heart failure, maybe you're having kidney issues, maybe you're having high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, right? Things that now take a lot more immediate action, take a lot more intensity, right? Because you don't have the wiggle room to make this a marathon, it needs to become a sprint, right? And now we're in the space where we're paying for medication, we're paying for surgeries, we're in and out of the hospital, visits, ambulance trips, etc. Where one, your children are going to be more traumatized, right? Because, oh my gosh, mom, dad is in the hospital. I need to go right now, right? I need to be there, whether they're 18 or they're 30, right? It doesn't matter. That's a traumatizing experience, right? They're worried about you. They want you to be able to live. And again, it's also something that's going to be taken away from your resources where now you actually could become dependent on your children, right? Maybe you need to move in with them because your medical expenses are so much. Maybe you are unable to take care of yourself now. So you need either for them to come and live with you or vice versa so that they can take care of you, or you need them to be able to fork up resources so that you can go and live in an assisted living in a community, right? Where you can get the help that you need. So again, this is bigger picture, right? And these are all very specific scenarios, but you can reasonably argue that by putting the resources in when it's a lot less monetary value, right? It has a lot less of your time demand, right? Because going to the gym for 30 to 40 minutes, right? 3 days a week, not really all that difficult, right? Not super demanding. That's what, like maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours, or I'm sorry, yeah, like an hour and a half to 2.5 hours a week, right? Being able to eat foods with them and do it in the way that we do with the dirty cut method, where we can actually enjoy foods together but make healthier choices, right? It's not really as difficult as being like, let's say, a low sodium diet because you have congestive heart failure and you can't consume enough, you can't consume the sodium, right? Like normal individuals who don't have CHF would have. And then now you can't go out to restaurants with your family anymore. You can't go over to your children's house and just be able to eat whatever they're serving, right? They got to make specific dietary adjustments for you, right? Maybe you have diabetes and now you can't enjoy cake with your children, right? On birthdays and holidays. Maybe you can't enjoy baked goods and things like that that you guys were normally doing as a holiday, experience or memories, right? And now you're taking away not only the memories from them, but you're also putting them in the positions where maybe they're having to fork up more resources. Maybe they're having to make adjustments and things like that. That again, in my opinion, right? Maybe you feel differently, but seems like it would be much more demanding on your children than maybe telling them a couple times out of the month, hey, we can't go to McDonald's. Probably a good thing anyways, right? Maybe a couple times more than what we'd like to, we'd have to say, hey, we can't really go to Chuck E. Cheese. Again, probably a good thing, right? Maybe we have to miss out on one small little outing that we would normally go to, I don't know, Dave and Buster's or GameWorks or something like that to be able to play games because you're like, hey, you know what? Putting, that extra $150 that month towards my health, right? I'm doing that so that I can be here long term and be able to be here, not be a burden on you later on, make sure that we have a lot of memories together, etc. So a lot of times when I hear, especially busy moms, because again, let's just face it, the social stigma around mothers doing things for themselves is a lot higher than the social stigma of fathers doing things for themselves. That's just my opinion. That's just what I've seen. Fellas, don't get mad if you're watching this, okay? That's just what I've seen and experienced personally. But that right there is exactly what we should push back against and make sure that we do prioritize our health, even if we don't feel like we have the time, even if we don't feel like we have all the resources available, be able to make those short-term sacrifices, right? Because most of us only need 6, maybe 12 months worth of just prioritization to be able to get the habits in place that now we can go ahead and do it on our own, right? Being able to make that investment into our health to avoid all the things that we just talked about, right? From the medical to the assisted living to the living with your children to needing their resources, needing help, scaring them, traumatic experiences, right? Being able to avoid all that seems like a pretty easy decision there, right? In terms of which one would you rather have? I think most of us would rather have the short term, hey, we can't go to Chuck E. Cheese maybe 4 times this month. Maybe we can only go twice or once, right? Making that versus the alternative seems like a no-brainer, right? But those are the things that, again, we have to think about in more detail. And again, think about what we want for our children, right? If you have a daughter and you are a busy mom, would you want your daughter to say the same thing and say, no, I can't because my children need it, right? You might like respect it, right? I'm not saying that it wouldn't be a noble, selfless act. I'm not trying to say that. But at the same time, my question isn't whether it's selfless or it's maybe a good motherly you know, I don't even know what to say, a good motherly you know, token, right, of appreciation towards their kids. But at the same time, it's not necessarily something that's going to be beneficial for everybody and not what you would probably want for your daughter or even for your son for that matter in the future if they had desires and goals that they wanted to go and strive after and be able to attain, right? So if you are a busy parent and you're struggling with the idea of, I don't know that I have the time, I don't know that I should prioritize myself, I'm going to take away from my kids, right? Understand that you're doing way more benefit for your family, right? Giving yourself more energy, more confidence, getting yourself to be able to run around at the park effortlessly without getting out of breath, right? Being here longer for memories and your grandchildren, etc. Not having to be the person who takes a lot of those resources from your children, unfortunately, from illness and all these other things that would come up, right? You're doing a lot more good for your children and for your family than you are doing harm. So overall, if you're that parent that's kind of on the fence, you know you need to do it, but you don't know whether right now is the time, this is always the time. There's never better time than right now. The only better time than right in this very moment to prioritize it was probably 3 or 4 years ago when you first realized that you should have done it and you never did, right? But the second best time is right now because we can't go back 3 or 4 years, right? The only thing we can do is go forward from here and make sure that we don't wait another 3 or 4 years. So if you're a busy parent and you're struggling with that guilt, take away the guilt. Understand that you're doing this for your family, for your kids, for your husband, for your wife, for your community, etc. Because when you play big, you give the opportunity, right, for others to believe that they should play big too. When you play small and you stay down so that other people don't feel like they're, you know, intimidated or like, man, like, what are they doing? Why do they think they should be able to do that, right? You're not serving yourself. You're not serving them. You're not serving your children. You're just following this perpetual cycle that's going to lead to everybody being miserable and truly not having the life that you desire. So I hope that this message reaches you well. I hope that you can see where I'm coming from and truly go out there, whether it's with health and fitness, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's going back out there in the job market, go out there and do something to prioritize yourself so that you can show your kids what it is to turn one day into a lifestyle.